Jason, thanks for joining us.
Thank
I
you.
know that you agreed to do this last minute, but I'm excited to have you. You have a very colorful background.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I've been a product nerd for 15, 20 years. I'm based in San Francisco. I'm currently the director of digital strategy for Ascendle. So Ascendle, we are a digital consultancy where basically we feel that innovative leaders need to be successful with as little pain as humanly possible. So, as a side gig, we kind of do some therapy with a lot of tech leaders. But we do everything from digital transformation, product strategy, digital strategy, but we also do a lot on the acceleration front. So we'll do value stream mapping. We'll take a look at what does your agile environment look like, your work stream. The way that I kind of see it is that we like connecting the dots between I have this really, really cool idea and I drew it on a whiteboard to, okay, now we need to commercialize it and actually make it a real thing. And of course AI is everything like that. But me personally, I'm in San Francisco. I was a multi-company entrepreneur. I've had 5 startups with 4 exits. My last company was acquired by Expedia, so I'm ex-Expedia. Prior to that, I've worked for Disney, and then way back when, I can't see where he is, yesterday's end keynote had MySpace written on top of the thing. I felt a little triggered because way back in the day, I actually was head of mobile for MySpace. So if you ever want to know what the real just nosedive was, find me later. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's just, there's so many cool ideas out there, and I'm just let's build some cool stuff that people care about.
Jason, I'm going to pause real quick before we jump into these questions because you said value stream mapping, and that came up last night. And the buzzwords people pretend to understand. Break that down for us.
Sure. I mean, simplistically, what a value stream mapping is that you are visually mapping out what your workflow is, and you're looking for inefficiencies and weaknesses and waste within that work stream. And it's what you're currently doing now and also what you're doing in the future. And that could be anything from you've got unnecessary processes, you're having unnecessary meetings, you're having unnecessary workflows. Doing value stream mapping is really sitting there, and it's all about efficiency. It's kind of all these organizations now have 26 things on the wall that they have to get done. They have 26 priorities. If you have 26 priorities, then you have 0 priorities. And it's all about looking at them going honestly, what are the top 2 or 3? What are the ones that are making the most impact? It's kind of like what you're seeing now is with AI, where it's this whole thing of I want to do more with less. The whole point of focusing and really doing that kind of value stream mapping exercise and that whole kind of mentality, honestly, if you think about it, you're doing less with more. You're focusing on these are the things that truly matter to our organization from a business level, from an innovation level, and from a revenue level. It's focus. And we do a lot of that. We'll talk to a lot of organizations, and they're like, we have everything. And it's well, hold on, let's figure out what really is going to move the needle.
I also wanted to let all of you know, if you have questions for Jason while we're having this conversation, please feel free to raise your hand. Chloe will spot that because we're doing a fireside chat. We like to open it up a little bit earlier and let you guys also join in on the conversation. Jason, you mentioned AI. Mm-hmm. That has to come up, of course, whether it be people talking about it as a hype word, but the AI revolution, what does it actually mean for businesses right now in present time?
My colleagues are probably tired of me saying this, but I classify AI as it's a horizontal technology. It's not just a bolt-on, it's not just a feature, it's not a thing, it is a horizontal technology. And this may seem a bit hyperbolic, but the way that I see it is you had the steam train, then you had the automobile, then you had the airplane, then you had the semiconductor, then you had the internet, and then you had smartphones, and now you have AI. And because of that, it's more than just it's a thing that I have to have. It's really it's a mindset that organizations need to adopt, because now we've got these tools that, again, enable individuals, organizations, random people to do things in such a rapid in an efficient way that just didn't exist really. I mean, generative AI is really kind of the big leap that didn't exist 5 to 10 years ago. To quote someone here in the room, these no-code, low-code, like generative AI tools are a person with ADHD's greatest gift ever. Because they could just sit there and I can just crank out ideas and just crank them out and crank them out. I don't need to know a single line of Python. I don't need to know a React stack. I don't need anything, but I can take an idea and actually, instead of drawing squares on a whiteboard, I can actually create these things. That, in my mind, makes it's that horizontal technology.
I've never heard it described as horizontal technology, and I think that's a very comfortable way of putting it, especially when we're talking so much about the fear around AI and how to adopt it.
I think my personal opinion is I think where a lot of this fear is coming from is because if you look at how short of a timeline AI has really come into existence in, we'll say, the common use. Like, over time, it's always been like it has taken decades to go from one technology to another technology. And now, because it's not a matter of decades, this is months. And I think it scares a lot of people because you're hearing a lot of pundits out there who are sitting going like, oh, well, next year, 30% of my workforce won't be necessary. You've got, especially in Silicon Valley, you have a lot of tech companies who are like, oh, I can get rid of 80% of my engineers because I have a Copilot, subscription. And it's like, so I would love to talk to a CTO and ask them, are you willing to bet your job that you will just fully allow AI to automate your code, come up with the test cases, run the test cases, validate the test cases, approve the test cases, and then push it into production without a single human being doing any oversight? Are you willing to risk your job with that?
I'm going to assume that the answer there is no.
It depends on who you ask.
Really?
Yeah, and you need the adult in the room. Like, I think also that other fear is that it's that fear of being replaced, like humans being replaced. And it's like, we're not. We're not going to be replaced. We need to evolve with it. It's like, goes back to the automobile. It's like, you have to learn how to drive a car. Back then. Now you don't, because you got Uber and Lyft and Zoox and you have Waymo and everything. I think
Jaya mentioned earlier something about the buggy and then moving to automobiles.
Yeah, exactly.
That.
Yeah, so that's why I call it a horizontal technology, because it is now going to be integrated in like the fabric of our life in some way, shape, or form. And you don't have to be in tech to be interacting with it. Like, you are going to be interacting with it, whether you're trying to get someone on the phone for customer service, or you're on a website talking to a bot, or whether you're doing an insurance claim, or whether you pull up Google search and Gemini starts giving you results as opposed to just a list. Yeah.
I have to say, I do appreciate Google search now giving me some AI lists. It makes my life a little bit easier.
Yep.
So by the December of last year, when the year was coming to an end, I heard some feedback about how we weren't talking enough about agentic AI in the tech space, and I was seeing a lot of articles and posts about this. And I noticed it still doesn't really come up that often in conversations, even though it seems to still be on everyone's mind. So when you look at Gen AI and agentic AI, how should companies properly approach this? Is there something that we're missing? How do we embrace it?
I think, like with all tools, from an organizational perspective, you need to ask yourself, what is the outcome we're trying to achieve? AI is really, really good with tackling the output side of it, but it's like, what is the outcome that you're trying to achieve? Is it you want more operational efficiency internally? Then start thinking about like, okay, well, maybe how can I implement some agentic workflows to make my internal, I'll just pull one off the top of my head, like my accounts payable people are miserable because it takes them forever to go through the paperwork and approve things and so forth and so on. But it's like, if I can introduce a tool for them to use that makes their lives more efficient, then it increases their productivity, and then it kind of goes out throughout the organization where we become more efficient. If you are, and I'm dyed-in-the-wool product nerd, is I as a product person, if you are not constantly using some form of generative AI to help you with research, to like I said, no code, low code, like Lovable, Replit, Bolt, everything like that, for you to like brainstorm and think about your concepts, it is a great tool to kind of eliminate a lot of the paperwork and the noise that you normally do, and it lets you focus on what's more important, which is thinking and visioning and ideating and thinking about business cases and use cases and things like that. It's all about outcome. Like, what is the outcome you're really, truly trying to achieve? And I think that's where you start. You start with the, what am I trying to do? Instead of the whole thing of like, oh, well, my competitor has it, so now I need to bolt it on. AI isn't a bolt-on. It is, again, it's that horizontal technology, because throughout the entire organization has to embrace it.
It makes me think of our conversation last night, and to really simplify this as the why, the what, and the how.
Yep.
And how those three questions become guiding principles for adopting innovative technology.
Yeah, exactly. So, with any type of technology, it's almost along the lines of back in 2007 when the iPhone rolled out, shortly after it was the like, oh, now I can have an app on a phone. Well, now just like then, it's the like, well, why do I need an app? Why? Answer it. And the why, like, well, what is the reasoning behind it? What are some OKRs around it? What are some, you need to put metrics around all of these decisions. And I know I've listened to a lot of conversations, and not just here, just in general, where there seems to be this reticence of putting measurable measurements attached to like this new AI that we want to use. It's like, oh, it's amazing, it's innovative, and stuff like that. But I'm like, yeah, but it has to be real. So that's like the why. Like, why am I doing this? Well, the reason why I'm doing this is because I'll go back to the accounts payable thing. My accounts payable, it takes it takes 17%. I'm just totally making stuff up. We see a 17% drop off from our customers because it takes so long for accounts payable and accounts receivable to actually do their job because they're just drowning in paperwork. We need to figure out how to improve that. Okay, great. Well, you need a measurement behind that. How do you want to prove it? We want to drop that 17% attrition rate to say 10. So why should we do this? Because we want to keep our customers. Then you go into the what, which is the, well, what is the way that we can do this? Well, maybe an agentic AI flow would help. Or honestly, maybe not. Maybe look at your processes that you already have in your organization. Maybe AI isn't, I know it's weird, maybe AI isn't the answer. And then once you kind of go through those filters, then it's the whole thing of like, well, then how am I going to do it?
That was going to be my next question for you, is where are we overestimating AI then?
I still feel individuals think, well, organizations think it's a silver bullet. Mm-hmm. It's the, well, I could just implement it and good things will happen. It was last year, there was a startup in San Francisco. He eliminated 90% of his customer service group because he's like, I have generative AI, I built a chatbot, I don't need my customer service group. He got hit hard with complaints because it was like, this is just a thing. And it's like, it's right now, it's very, very shiny. And I think we're still trying to figure out what are some real world applications of it. And again, it just goes back to my thing, like I'm going to keep beating this drum. It is you need to think of it as a horizontal technology. But then once you have that, you can't just throw out what you've been doing as an organization. So like yesterday with Peter, where is he? There he is, talking about like agile development. Mm-hmm. I know, and I've read a lot and I've heard a lot and talked to a few people about it, where people are sitting here going like, well, AI kind of defeats the purpose of agile because I can just do things. I can load up a tool, I can build an interface, I can build an app, I can send the code over to Copilot, they can build it, and then I can just chuck it into production, and I have a commercial ready product and everything like that. First off, no, you don't.
It sounds really easy and simple when you put it like that, but it's a lot more complicated.
It's way more complicated than that because what you've just done is like, it's like what it takes to commercialize arguably a POC or an MVP. And it's that chasm between I spent a couple of days building something that I think is cool, that I think that I can put in front of a handful of users and get some feedback and everything like that, is way different than I've commercialized it. It has a business model around it. It has scalability all around it. And that is where I think where agile comes in. And I go like all big organizations, like being agile in my mind means it's stable and predictive. That is what it's the adult in the room. So you can take this agentic AI, any type, no code, low code, whatever kind of philosophy, and it goes, in my mind, perfectly with agile because it kind of gives it some guardrails. Like I said earlier, it's like it goes from like, I have a little bit of ADD myself. I love these tools because I could just sit there and just crank and crank and crank and crank and crank and crank and crank. It doesn't mean any of them should ever see the light of day. Because if you put it through that process, you're pressure testing it.
Interesting. Do we have any questions from the audience?
So, the theme of horizontal, AI being a horizontal thing has come up before, at least once in this conference. So I want to hear your opinion as to what happens to the workforce when you have a horizontal component. Yeah.
I mean, I don't think there's like a comfortable answer. And I think that answer is it's kind of, this is going to sound bad. It's kind of like an adapter parish. Like you see all over again, like I'll just speak from product side, engineering side, and things like that. It's the AI is not going to replace a product manager. AI is not going to replace an engineer. But a product manager and an engineer who utilizes AI as part of their daily workflow, work stream, and philosophy will replace the product manager and the engineer that doesn't do it. That's kind of the nicest way that I can say is the whole thing of like, you need to learn how to use these tools and embrace it. Like horizontal, that's what I mean by horizontal technology. This is never going away. It's here to stay. What it's going to be in 12, 18 months, who knows? But it's here. And I think that's where the workforce needs to like realize. Yeah. Yeah.
Question in the back from Pete.
Hi again, Jason.
Hi.
My question is, we're in a world now where we have no-code, low-code options with applications like v0dev, right, that let us kind of quickly create application layers and working backends. Are you aware? Have you seen tools focused on product management specifically, utilizing AI that allow product managers to take maybe the next evolutionary step deeper and almost hand off working prototypes themselves that they create themselves to development? Have you seen that yet? And if you have, I want to know what the name of those companies are. I'm very interested in those.
See, this is where I'm gonna earn my keep here with my company here at the conference. So to plug, it is actually something that we've been working internally on ourselves. We've been working on several agentic workflows where the basic model is a product owner, product strategist can have a conversation with a generative AI model and create a product requirements document. They still have to review it and everything like that. And then that product requirements document gets fed into a no-code, low-code framework, and we're still kind of playing with a handful of them to see what it is. And then from there, again, it's that very conversational kind of like, again, the product strategist, their existence now is to think and not to be like, I got to worry about how am I structuring my Jira story? How am I going to be doing this? This is the concept and everything like that. And then from once it goes to that no code, low code, it does spit out a GitHub repo that can be used to we always have a human factor. So it gets spit out to our architect, and then the architect will then utilize typically Copilot, that's what we use, and then they generate it, and within days, it can go from you and I having a conversation here about an idea that you have, and within 3 or 4 days, I can just email you a link. Check it out. But again, there are adults in the room. There's the human product strategist. There is the human architect. We usually we have whatever UI, UX people just kind of take a eye on things, because the way that I've always said with AI where it is right now, whether it's generative AI, agentic AI, or even classic AL, ML, and everything like that, it is an unpaid intern that you have to be very, very specific with what you want. And you're going to get about 80% of it back of what you were hoping for. But that 80% will have saved you hours and days of work. But no, it's probably a first draft. All about efficiency. And I think we're going to see more and more of that. I guarantee you right now there is a one-person unicorn company, I'm going to be biased, sitting in the Bay right now who's doing this. Everything is automated, but there's still that human that has to have 25% of their life to make only 25% instead of 150% as a founder, making sure that my little intern is behaving itself. Yeah, we're working on those workflows. Yeah.
Do you have another question? Great. Jason, where do you think organizations get stuck in this process and in starting this journey?
It depends on the organization. I mean, highly regulated ones, I completely understand why they get stuck. You have to be. When you're very, very risk averse, you have to make sure that everything is buttoned up. Like with all things with AI, it's the old adage of way back in the day where it's garbage in, garbage out. The problem is now, especially with generative AI and agentic AI, if you put in a little bit of garbage, you get a landfill of garbage that comes out on the end. So there's a lot of, you have to be, it's all about the efficacy of your data that you're putting in there. So regulated organizations are very cognizant of being risk averse, which is great. Take your time. Those are where it's that whole notion of well, what outcome am I trying to achieve? I'm not going to try to just completely change my organization overnight because I have a subscription to Anthropic. I think other organizations, again, it depends on, because I was thinking about this last night, it really depends on what they do and what is their competitor. You can definitely tell the ones that are being more reactive than proactive, because it is the whole thing of well, I'm just going to bolt this on and it's going to change everything. I have 500 engineers and I'm going to get rid of all but 150 of them. I have all this customer service, I'm just going to get rid of them and I'm only going to have 5 of them left. It's becoming very obvious who's being reactive in it, as opposed to, just take a second and see, again, what outcome are you trying to achieve with this new tool?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would think that the goal to be proactive would be what they're trying to get to. Yeah. What are some of the biggest pain points or misconceptions then that you're hearing as companies try to be proactive?
I mean, it's not doing enough research, not experimenting. If you're going to do it, if you want to be proactive, experiment. Bring it into your organization and experiment. Bring in, peel off a team and put them in a corner and go, this is the outcome we're trying to achieve. See if you can do it in parallel. It's almost like when you're doing a platform migration. That's probably the best way that I can kind of analogy of it is so say I'm going to go from, and I'm just I'm going to go from Azure to AWS. It's well, you have multiple options on how you can be successful with it. If you're just going to stop on your current platform and then just spend the next 18 months pumping everything to another platform, probably not the best strategy. But doing it in parallel, that's also kind of like how I see it, and seeing other organizations with it. This is the outcome I'm trying to achieve. I'm going to put a small group together, see if they can do it, and then figure out from what they've done, how can I implement it into my larger organizational processes? Because it's not just going to be, if you've just got like one silver thread through your organization, you don't. So, and the last thing you want to do is, again, little bit of garbage in, a lot of garbage comes out. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Both of our panels yesterday and today kind of touched on a similar topic to what you're saying about creating a group who can go and do these discoveries. With that, though, there is that component of failure.
Yeah.
I think we're in a unique situation where a lot of the group here is open to having people try new ideas, but not all leadership is going to be open to that. So then what conversations can you have with leadership where you're saying, hey, I want to start this group, whether it be a pathfinding group like Pete mentioned yesterday, but they might fail. They might not get an outcome here.
So we do that. We actually work with a handful of companies. One of the things that we've started doing over the last few months is we call them AI-powered tiger teams, where it is this whole thing of like, it's a very small group. It's usually a product expert, an architectural expert, a PMO for process expert, because eventually you want to take what this little skunkworks thing that you're doing and implement it into your organization. So you want to make sure you have that like PMO bridge. And then usually, QA, because you need adults in the room. And the way that we've always kind of frame it up is that the ones who are totally comfortable with it, it's the like, well, hey, we still want to put some OKRs and KPIs around this, because if it's just an experiment to do an experiment, again, I understand there's a lot of pushback on the like, well, you shouldn't put metrics around innovation. I do disagree with that. I was a startup guy for years. Doing it for the sake of doing it is a really good way to burn a lot of your runway. It's
what metrics are you putting around it?
And it depends on what you're trying to do. Like, it depends. Usually, I mean, it's anything from, so like say, I'll just throw something out there. Like, I want to throw together a team to increase my new user acquisition and engagement. So I'm going to come up with some new way, maybe some new onboarding flow that feels more personalized because it's using generative AI and things like that. And I'm like, I take what my current metrics are, because you need your baseline, which is usually what you're currently doing. And then then it's like, I'm going to do this experimentation, and that is where you put the new metrics around it, going like, I want to increase it 3%, 4%, whatever. You do have to put some sort of measurement behind it. And then once that's all kind of agreed upon, I have found in my experience that those leaders who are a bit hesitant on like, well, what, you mean to tell me I'm going to have like half a dozen FTEs off doing something that may or may not actually have any impact of my revenue or what our quarterly OKRs are or anything. But if you sit there and go like, yeah, but the team is actually going to be accountable for what they're doing, that seems to like make it a little easier to swallow. But you also need to put the caveat under it going like, this is R&D. And if it fails, what also you need to do, again, along the whole agile, thinking about the agile methodology is, it failed, immediately do a postmortem and figure out why. You just can't sit there and go like, it didn't work. That helps.
We have enough time for one more question from the audience. If anybody wants to ask Jason a question before we let him go. All right, Jason, before I let you off the stage, my last question for you here is, when it comes to decision making, how do you balance that gut instinct with the data-driven decisions?
I mean, that's the eternal product question. Like, it's kind of quantitative versus qualitative. How would I answer that? How would I balance a gut versus quantitative? Some of the greatest technological inventions really came from the gut. And what I mean by that is that it's the user, you put that user in the center of the experience. And that's kind of the gut, in my opinion. I know this is gonna be a weird answer, I'm sorry. But it's the like, well, the data says this. I'm like, well, that's cool. That's the quantitative side of it. I mean, that's telling you what's happening. Your gut is like the why, and the way that I look at it with the why is like you talk to your customer, you talk to your user, then you find out like, well, why don't you care about that? And then you form that 360 degree. I say the quantitative data are the guardrails. Where it's like you don't want to get too wacky and like, oh, I have this idea, and it's like I literally have data that says you're wrong, kind of thing. But you still have to sit there and like you talk to your customer, and like understand what their needs are. What is that qualitative data? Yeah.
Jason, thanks for having this conversation and
you.
talking us through both value mapping and different strategies as well.
Cool.
Jason,
Thanks.
thank you.